Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show today. Today, we are talking about how to always be compounding in many things of life, but especially your money. And with us today is a very special guest, Curtis Ray. Now, Curtis actually founded SunCor Financial, LLC, and serves as the president and CEO. So by bringing awareness about the 5 rules of wealth, Curtis is helping hardworking people from all walks of life to maximize their retirement income through discipline, secure leverage, and achieve exponential growth. Now, he designed and developed the patented pending MPI, or maximum premium indexing, to accomplish all 5 rules of wealth. And we'll be talking about this today and do it simultaneously, thereby solving the riddle of investing and increasing retirement income by up to 400%. So through his life, Curtis has been a serial entrepreneur and an inventor. And with a passion to take on issues that some accept as status quo, Curtis solves inefficiencies with entirely new approaches. And we're going to talk about a lot of this as we dive in today. So Curtis, welcome to the show today.
Thank you very much, Ty. I'm glad to be here.
I love it, man. So let's start. I mean, before we get started, you mentioned this always be compounding, which I love, the always be compounding. I'm a fan of always be closing. So what do you mean by always be compounding?
So supposedly back in the 1940s, Albert Einstein claimed that the power of compounding, we always use this cliche phrase that compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. I personally believe he actually said the power of compounding is the 8th wonder of the world. It's the ability of anything going from A to infinite. It never slows down and it gets faster and faster and faster over time. And this is an energy source. It's a powerful, powerful knowledge to know how you take anything, progressing it to awesomeness, I call it, right? And so if you can take the power of compounding, always be compounding in your life, in your business, in your marriage, in your relationships, in your health, in anything, you will go from a very basic elementary point to a very advanced, awesome, just the best version of you. And that's what I always like to help people do is if you can learn how compounding works, double on double on double, then all of a sudden pretty cool things happen in your life.
Well, let's talk about this in the form of money, because I think most of us relate to that, right? Most of us relate to this idea of compounding and how to save early or young in our lives as much as we can, and then how that money compounds over time to then have, many different, as you said, many multiples, let's say, of what it started with. So how does compounding work in the form of investing in money?
So compounding, like I said, is this energy force that few people understand. I just recently wrote a book. It's a best-selling book. It's my second one, called The Lost Science of Compound Interest. And I talk about how this force of compounding is not what we think it is. We play in the stock market, we play in real estate and all these things that are ups and downs. And it looks like this. It's up, down, and we know exactly what the stock market looks like. But compounding is this. And it is a curve, and it continually goes faster and faster and faster. And so the ability to double your money, and so $1 turns into 2, and 2 turns into 4, and 8, and 16, and 32, and 64. And that is the power of compounding. And a bunch of things people don't understand is, first, you cannot get compounding unless you never lose. And I know that a lot of people are like, well, how do you never lose? You're investing, it's risky, no risk, no reward. I go, no, you cannot get the power of compounding unless you're in something that doesn't go backwards. And why that's so important is if you had $10,000 and you lose 50% of it, how much do you have? 5,000, right? If you gain 50% back 1 second later, how much money do you have? 7,500. Exactly. But people think, hey, I'm a 0% average. Financial advisors and financial influencers say, oh, the stock market's averaged 10%, 8%. But what has it actually done? How much compounding has it actually done? Is always a way less number because of the ups and downs. And so understanding that you've got to be in something that continually grows, even if it's slower. Because singles and doubles, I don't know if you've watched the movie Moneyball, but singles and doubles outperform home runs and strikeouts in the game of compounding. And so one of my biggest sayings that a lot of people get confused on, and I say, don't chase the rate of return, chase the rate of compounding, because those two things are not synonymous. But we've been told like, oh, what's my rate of return? What's my rate of return? Every time I talk to someone about investing or MPI, they go, well, what's the rate of return? I go, that's not the right question. It should be, what is your rate of compounding? How do you take something from 1 to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 8, 8 to 16, 32, 64, and never go backwards? And if you can do that, then anyone has potential of wealth in their lifetime. Even someone who's in a base salary of $30,000 a year, if you make money, you can build wealth through the power of compounding.
How do you do it?
How do you do it? There are 5 rules, right? We talked about the 5 rules of wealth. My whole book talks about these 5 rules. And if you can abide by them, and they're pretty simple, but you have to do all 5 of them. And if you don't do all 5, if you only do 4, it's a counterfeit. If you only do 3, it's a counterfeit. If you do 2, it's a counterfeit. No matter how good those 2 features are, if you don't get all 5, it's not pure compounding. The first rule of wealth, and it's the most important rule that you can possibly do, pay yourself first. There's this book called The Richest Man in Babylon. Sold millions and millions of copies across the country. If you've never read The Richest Man in Babylon, I highly recommend you go buy it today and you go read it, because it is the most life-changing book I've ever read. It really got me on this path of how exponential growth works, how compounding works. But he goes through and he goes, no matter how much money you make, it's not about how much you make, it's about how much you keep. And if you don't keep money, entrepreneurs have the hardest time, because we make money, we lose money. We make money, we lose money. But we never keep any money. And I'm the prime example of it, that I had a business from 2004 to 2014, and I was making 6 or 7 figures every single year moving forward, or every single year for those 10 years. And one day my business collapsed in 2014 and I had nothing. And when that happened, I looked back and I said, how did I make millions of dollars and end up with nothing? And that's because I never paid myself. I never put money away for myself. And so The Richest Man Babylon says, pay yourself first, put money away. You earned money. You deserve part of it. That is a decision you got to make. So first rule of wealth, pay yourself first. The second rule is you got to commit to it. It's today. Tomorrow never comes. If you wait till tomorrow, literally 30 years down the road, unfortunately, it'll be like my dad, who's just 30 years of making a bunch of money. And now he looks at it and goes, now what? I'm 66 and I ain't got nothing. And so start immediately. The third rule is protect your money at all costs. Not losing money has more value to your compounding than making a lot of money. And entrepreneurs hate when I say that, and financial advisors hate when I say that, but not losing has more value than making money. And then the fourth is you got to make the money then. And then fifth, you have to leverage or time. There's so much opportunity out there. There's so many resources. There's this acronym called OPM, Other People's Money. And if you know how to leverage correctly, that is how you accelerate this whole thing. And if you can accelerate your wealth through doing the other 4 things, put money away today, somewhere protected, somewhere growing, then you leverage it. That is how you achieve exponential growth in a short amount of time.
Interesting. So let's start with the first one of these. Pay yourself first. So what you mean, for example, as an entrepreneur, you need to make sure that you're taking cash out of that business, and you need to make sure that you're paying yourself. But you and I both know that a lot of people then aren't saving that money. So is paying yourself first just make sure that you have the money coming in, or is that really have anything to do with the saving part?
It's all about the saving part. I call pay yourself first. It should actually be saying pay your future self first. To shorten it down, we say pay yourself first, but it's making a decision that your future self looks back on and says, thank you. That was a good decision. And in the money terms, it means saving 10 to 20% of your income. I have this thing called the business protection plan, where I say, as entrepreneurs, we're taught, from all these financial influencers, that you go all in every dollar, borrow money from your friends and family, 15 years, you got to go all in. And I go, no. Scale slower. Slow and steady wins this race. It really does. And so what we do is you go make money, you pay yourself. You got to live. You got your cost of living has to be taken care of. But after that point, you have a thing called net profit. That is after all your expenses, right? Take 50% of that and go put it away for your future self. And 50% goes to expanding your business and stuff like that. So pay yourself first legitimately is put money away for your future self so that he doesn't have to work. Because every dollar you put into compounding buys you future time. That is the fascinating part about compound interest. You put $1 in today, it buys you time in the future. And so you put in $10, it buys you more time. You put in 100,000, it buys you more time. And the goal is to get the two to meet at your goal. And that is either to retire at 45, 50, 55, 60, whenever. But the only way this time comes to you is by compounding money. And one day they meet and then you're retired and you achieve freedom.
And what do you mean by then, and which makes a lot of sense, that committing to it is just taking the first step to do this? Because you and I both know that 10 to 20% of your income put aside, man, that's way easier said than done. And so how do you do that? Because I don't think anybody on here is going to leave this and immediately just go take 10% of their money and put it away, because they're spending on other stuff right
Yeah. And I have thousands of clients now across the country, and all of them kind of look at me when I say 5 to 15 is what my normal saying. I go, I don't really care how much it is. If you can get money in compounding and give it enough time, it will produce you wealth. So start somewhere. If it's $200 a month, start there. If it's $500 a month, start there. But there's this fascinating thing about money. And I try to be as empathetic and sympathetic towards cost of living and paycheck to paycheck as possible. But in 2007, let's hypothetically say you're making 75,000 a year. 2008 comes rolling around, and your employment got slashed down to 50,000 a year. Or, I mean, everyone took a pay cut in 2008. Did anyone die from it? We just evolved. You were spending 75,000, and at 75,000, you thought you were living paycheck to paycheck, and there is no humanly possible way you could have saved money at 75,000, married with 3 kids or whatever, right? And then all of a sudden, your paycheck went down to 60,000 or 50,000. You're like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? And within 1 month, you evolved. You changed your lifestyle, and you survived, and you moved on forward, and your job was to go try to find ways to make more money. But what I'm trying to tell people is, if you pay yourself first, meaning you make 75,000 a year, let's just go on easier. Now, if you make $6,000 a month, if you took $600 out of that and you put it towards your future self, and now you tell yourself, I only have $5,400 to live off of, guess what happens? Your life doesn't even change. You don't even notice the difference. But if you wouldn't have done that first, and you would have said, I'm going to go live my life and then I'll save the difference, it never happens. You always live paycheck to paycheck, and you always wonder why 10, 15, 20 years, you have no progress. There's no compounding in your life. There's no wealth building in your life, because you didn't embrace the number one most important rule of wealth. And that is, you get money, 5, 10, 15, 20% of it, set aside, and then live off the difference. And you will realize very quickly, and I have hundreds of people who can testify this, who said, I can't do it. I go, try it. Try it for 3 months. Can you give me a 3-month commitment that you get a check and you take money and put it aside and then live off the difference? And every single one of them comes back to me and said, I didn't even notice. Like, my life didn't even change. I still went out to eat. I still went to the movies with my kids, maybe less often, but we still had everything. So that whole pay yourself first is one of my most important things I can tell people, is it's got to come first. Because if it doesn't come first, it's not going to happen.
now. And this makes a ton of sense. But what's interesting in your scenario is that, let's say that person's making 75 grand, right? COVID-19 happens, mortgage crisis happens, income immediately goes away in its entirety. What do you do? Because you and I both know that everybody I know is going to then immediately go to that money that's been saved and is going to start using that money to live. But is that the wrong way to do it? And if so, then what would you do in that situation where your income goes from 75 to 0 overnight? Are you more inclined to then put money on credit cards and live that way versus tap into the savings? Because I think that's a real world scenario that a lot of people would struggle with.
Yeah, that's a complicated scenario, because the worst decision you can possibly make on your personal finance is to touch a compound account until it's matured. Once it matures, then it's got liquidity and it's growing faster than you can spend it, and really cool things like that. But we are taught. I mean, think how crazy this is. It's like the worst financial decision you can ever make. But the 401k has a few exceptions when you're allowed to touch it before penalty, like the 59 and a half years old. And one of them is a down payment on a house. Like, holy moly, you took out $50,000 from your 401k to go put a down payment on a house. Just to be clear on how much value you just took out of your future self, money can double on itself roughly every 7 years on average. A good compound account can double every 7 years. So let's play it out over 30 years on the life of that mortgage that you have this house, right? 50,000 to 100,000, 200,000, 400,000, 800,000, roughly $1 million by you taking 50 grand out of a compound account to go put a down payment down, or, live through COVID and stuff like that, cost your future self $1 million. Was it worth it? I get it. There are emergencies happen. I made a joke the other day, and it's a very terrible joke, and some people are going to roll their eyes when they hear this. But someone goes, well, when can you touch a compound account in the first 10 or 15 years? And I go, if your wife is taken hostage by the cartel and you need to pay a ransom, maybe, and they're like, I'm like, no, you'll find other ways. Go borrow money from your friends or family. Don't touch a compound account, and obviously I'm being facetious when I say that, but it's like, um, the more you can allow compounding to magnify itself and completely accelerate and capture all its potential, you will look back in 20 years and say, that is the best decision I ever made in my whole life, like bar none, because it produced freedom. And freedom is actually the pinnacle of everything. If we can produce freedom in our life, it's more important than money. It's more important than everything. Freedom is everything. And so in the COVID scenario, I've had a bunch of people come to me and I said, what do I do, Curtis? And I go, emergencies are emergencies. If you are starving to death, we'll catch up later. We can always catch up. But if there are ways that you can go mow lawns and then you can go give plasma and you can go whatever, borrow money from friends and family, even put money on, use credit cards, a compound account should never be touched. And if you abide by that, then you will look back, because every time you touch a compound account, you're just robbing your future self. You're paying Peter to stealing from Peter to pay Paul and stuff like that. And we don't want to do that. And people go, well, credit cards are, 10, 15, 20%, Chris, why would I ever do that? And I go, think about a compound account. If you can get 10% in a compound account, when it doubles in 7 years, it's making equivalent of 20%. In 7 more years, it's making equivalent of 40%, equivalent of 80%, equivalent of 160%. So even credit cards and the debts that they bring on, a compound account will outperform it in the future.
How do you protect the money? Because it seems to me like you're talking about compounding and money doubling every 7 years. I don't think, Curtis, a lot of people are invested there in places where their money's doubling every 7 years. So how do you do that? Where do you put the money to really properly protect it and get that doubling every 7 years?
Yeah. So here's an interesting story. In 2014, I lost about $2 to $3 million in a single day. And it was devastating. Like, it was my whole life. I built it for 10 years and my business was gone in a blink of an eye due to an unforeseen scenario that I wasn't ready for. I didn't prepare for. And on that day, it was Halloween night. I took my kids trick-or-treating and I said, I put them to bed. I told my wife, I said, I can't sleep, man. I was devastated. And I didn't sleep that whole night. And I got up the next morning and I said, I will never be vulnerable with money again. What does it take that you're not vulnerable to money? Because risk kills all compounding. And for the next year, I spent 10 to 12 hours a day, every single day, researching 401ks. What are the benefits? What are the flaws? Where does it crack? Where does it win? All the things. Then IRAs, then real estate, then insurance products, then cryptocurrency, and all these various things. And I came to the conclusion that they all were good, but they all had flaws. They all broke somewhere. And I use the analogy of, if you're in construction, there's a 2x4. Everyone knows what a 2x4 is, right? It's a stud. It's a piece of wood that's long. If you put pressure on both sides of the 2x4 and you try to break it, it breaks fairly easy because there's always a weak point inside of it. And so I'm looking at, like, okay, insurance products, they're guaranteed never to lose, but they don't grow very well. So where's the weak point? It doesn't grow. 401ks inside of index funds and mutual funds, they grow really well, but they're risky. So that's their weak point. Real estate doesn't grow very well and it's risky, but you can leverage. That's their strong points and those are the weak points. And so they always break. Everything always breaks. So my brother and I had this crazy idea. What if you can combine all their strengths and eliminate all their weaknesses? Sounds impossible, right? It was like, how do you do that? I go, well, if you can build an insurance product that has guaranteed security built inside the stock market so it can grow, and then you can also use leverage, OPM, to accelerate the whole thing, what would that look like? And we actually built it. You talked about maximum premium indexing, MPI, which is the first financial strategy ever created. And it's a big statement. And it's gone through 6 years of compliance and regulatory boards and all that other fun stuff. So it's now validated. But it is the first insurance product that has guaranteed security against the stock market. That's how we protect our money, but has the growth potential that exceeds the index fund. So you can get that 10, 11, 12, 13, 14% as this thing matures through leverage. How do we use leverage correctly and securely? And when you do all three of those things together, it can increase your retirement income not only securely, but up to 400% over any 401k IRA, real estate rental portfolio, indexed universal life, whole life, all those different things. And so you ask the question, how do you protect your money? You got to put inside of insurance. And I know a lot of people say, well, insurance, it's insurance. I get it. Most insurance is designed to protect your money, not grow your money. But then we have an arm that grows it. Then we have an arm that leverages it. When you take 3 2x4s and screw them all together, there are no weak points, because where one is weak, the other is strong. Where up here it's weak, it's strong there. And so we basically took 3 2x4s, screwed them all together, and all of a sudden compounding happened. The magic and the phenomenon of compounding was achieved. And why I end up writing my book, The Lost Science of Compound Interest, is that you got to do everything simultaneously. No one thing matters. All of them matter. And if you do all of them together, then it accelerates compounding.
Talk to me more about MPI. Is this a vehicle that somebody can specifically invest into? And if so, how?
Yeah, it's a vehicle. It's the only vehicle available. People always go, can I go to my bank and set it up? I go, I'm the developer. I'm the owner of it. And I teamed up with a multi-billion-dollar A+ rated life insurance company in business 110 years. So it's gone through compliance. It's gone through all the different necessary channels for me to be able to speak about it today and help people. And so in order to set up an MPI account, there are basically 2 requirements. One, it is a life insurance plan. So it does require a health exam. Not everyone qualifies. And everyone goes, what's the biggest flaw to MPI? And I go, not everyone qualifies. And that hurts me, because I built this to benefit anyone who wants to maximize compound interest in their life. And some people unfortunately don't qualify. We have workarounds, and we have, we're very creative on how we work with someone who can't qualify, but it is a life insurance plan. And 2, feed the beast. You got to be committed to put money away for your future. Life insurance plans do have costs inside of them. I explain them whenever we build a plan with someone. I explain, here are the costs. They're very small, 1 or 2% of what you put in goes to your life insurance and stuff like that. But if you don't put money into it, it won't work. What's awesome about compound interest is the moment you understand it, it's like any really awesome thing that you learned in your life, you can never forget it once you learn it. And the moment you understand compound interest, it becomes a system in your life. Not how much do I have to put in, it's how much can I put in. Most of my clients, take, a week, 2 weeks, a month to really embrace what I'm trying to explain here. Because it's not something we learn every day. We don't learn about compound interest in school. Even the financial influencers tell you to go pay off your debt first and go do this and your baby steps and stuff like that. And none of them are built inside of compounding. And I'm like, hey, I'm sorry. Everything you've ever been told ever about financial planning is incomplete, backwards, or not compounding. And that's why 99% of people end up getting to retirement thinking, wow, they're not so golden. I was expecting golden and it's not so golden, because you never got your money compounding. And so we set up this life insurance plan. It's got a special arm built inside the stock market that can grow really well. We leverage it. We do a bunch of fun stuff, but every single person's invited to a one-on-one with me or my teammates. We've got, 10 or 15 different certified MPI specialists that sit down with you, learn your situation. What are your goals? How soon do you want to retire? How soon do you want to achieve this freedom that compound interest can bring you? We build it. And if it looks advantageous and it brings benefit to you, we get rocking and rolling. It takes about 4 to 6 weeks to set up these plans, and then always be compounding from that moment on.
What's the investment initially to set something like that up?
Nothing. I mean, there's no lump sum. It's just pay yourself first. So I tell people, hey, 5 to 15% of your income, whatever you can do. If you can get started right now, it will bring you value. The more you can do, like I said, those 2 things have to meet somewhere. So if you put more money in, you're buying yourself a lot of time in the future. If it's slow, like a 16, I have a bunch of, 18-year-olds, 21-year-olds that are, getting to college and stuff like that. They're like, how much do I have to do? I'm like, can you do $150 a month? If you can do $150 a month, you will end up with millions of dollars by your 60th birthday. That's how easy compound interest actually is. If you're in your 30s, 40s, and 50s, you got to get a little bit more aggressive to produce the retirement you're looking for. But yeah, no lump sums. It is pay yourself first. Start today, 5, 10, 15% of your income, and move forward. Let it compound.
You mentioned that the 4th was make money. So what do you mean by that in the 5 rules of wealth?
That's the stock market arm that we
Okay.
have inside of it. So the insurance product. So it's a pretty cool system. People go, how do you guarantee not to lose? That sounds impossible. I go, it's not impossible. And this is why. Inside of a life insurance plan, they have a thing called a dividend. A lot of people know what a dividend is. It's when the company pays out a profit share to their clients. So when you buy a life insurance plan, you are basically profit sharing with the life insurance company, and they give you X amount of money. What we end up doing, what's really fascinating about how simple MPI is, rather than investing your money in the stock market, which could be very, very crazy and you could lose all of it or you could make a lot or whatever, you just never know. If you put $10,000 into this life insurance plan, and let's just say it makes you a 5% dividend on average, it's going to make you $500. What we do with that $500 is life-changing. We take that $500 and we go aggressively invest in a thing called a call option. It's a really cool form of trading inside the stock market. But what we end up doing is we didn't touch our 10,000. Our 10,000 is guaranteed by the life insurance company not to lose. We only took the dividend and went and played home runs with that money. And when you combine those two things, I call it the yin and yang of investing. Conservative risk taking. We are in a system that our money will never lose, but the money, the dividend, that growth on it, we go gangbusters on that. We try to go really, really hit home runs. And historically, we hit home runs about 70% of the time, and 30% of the time, it's worthless. That we lose that dividend and we just broke even that year. So in a 2008 scenario, when the MPI system didn't pay out anything, you broke even. You didn't lose time. You didn't lose 40% like a traditional stock. You flatlined. Then the next year when the market rebounded, we're right back into it, exactly where we were, where everyone else had to take 4 or 5 years to break even. They had to make back all the lost time or all the lost money, which lost you time. And one thing about compound interest, a lot of people discount, is time is your most important asset. It's not a timing game, it's a time game. How much time can you give money to compound? And when you understand that time is the one asset you can never get back, you never want to be in a system that can lose you time. And unfortunately, stocks and real estate and various other things lose you time. The money, you can remake money. You can't remake time.
What about leverage? You mentioned that as the fifth one. What of this formula, what part of that is leverage?
That is the secret sauce of MPI. That is the one thing that is in patent pending. So all the things I just told you, put money away right now in an insurance product that is also built in the stock market, that's common knowledge. It's called indexed universal life. It's got its flaws, but it's pretty good. It's a really good vehicle to set up a retirement plan, but it still only gets around 7 to 8% interest on average. That's not good enough. So in 2014, I noticed this feature inside of an insurance product that very few people use. Actually, no one used it, because even when I took it to the insurance company, I said, why are you not using this feature earlier? They use it later on, but they never use it early. And they go, why would you do that? I'm like, because it accelerates your growth from 7% up to 15%. And that jump from 7 to 15 is the difference of poor and wealthy, and so this is what it is. And I'm hopefully this doesn't get too confusing, but inside of life insurance, there is a feature called the line of credit an indexed loan. I call it the MPI match program, where an insurance company allows you to borrow their money at any moment in time equal to your cash value. If you have money inside this account, you can take a line of credit from them at 4% interest. So I'm sitting there and I'm looking at it, I'm like, wait. You're telling me I can use unlimited amount of money from you and it's only going to cost me 4%. So the only thing I got to do is go find an investment that makes me more than 4%, and I'm making money off of your money. Is that correct? And they're like, well, technically, yes. And I go, but then you tell me that your system, the indexed universal life, which is, it's happened, it's mathematically sound, can make around 7% interest. And they're like, yes. And I go, so I want to take a line of credit and I want to put it inside my indexed universal life. And they're like, why would you want to do that? And I go, because I just took my rate of return from 7% to 10% by using your money. And they're like, it can't be that easy. So they end up having their actuaries for the next 2 or 3 months try to break this theory I had on OPM used securely. Don't go for home runs, just leverage money at 4%, go make 7% on it very securely because we have this, this insurance product that's built inside the stock market where you can't lose, but it's also, makes you around 7 to 8% on average. And when we played this thing out over 30 years, it outperformed the index fund, mutual funds, whole life, bank on yourself, infinite banking, IULs by up to 4 times more retirement income than anything ever produced in every stock market scenario since 1930, the Great Depression. We back tested it all the way back, thousands and thousands. We reversed it, Monte Carlo'd it up, down, left, right, took 15, 20, 25-year segments, and it worked 100% of the time. And so at that point in time, the insurance company called me up and said, we would like to be partners with you on this. And I'm like, well, I'm a granite guy. I have a granite countertop business. I'm not even in finance. This was my hobby, like learning how money works. And so I actually sold my business to my brother. And for the last 18 months, I've been traveling the country. I wrote 2 best-selling books. The first one is called Everyone Ends Up Poor, Why the Whole System is Backwards and How to Fix It. And the second one is called The Lost Science of Compound Interest. That one that's my thesis. That's 6 years of research on how you optimize compound interest, traveling the country doing this. And now I'm the fastest growing financial planning company in the whole world right now. Like we have thousands of people coming in just like, this makes sense. Why does it sound so easy? It sounds too good to be true. And I go, because science is always too easy. It is A squared plus B squared equals C squared. And if you follow the rules, it will always work. I obviously, nothing is perfect, but I built a system that's as close to compound interest, the purest form of compound interest that you can possibly get. And we're chasing rate of compounding. And the moment you do that, everything becomes easy at that point in time.
Chris, what is an IUL?
An indexed universal life, IUL, is a insurance vehicle that, like I said, you have guaranteed security against the stock market, but you also play in the stock market. So it's insurance on your risky taking. And what they do, like I said, is you go put money in an insurance product. It makes you a small amount of money. You go invest that money very aggressively in the stock market. That's all handled for you. So it's not anything you do. The insurance company does all that. But it's a lot of people talk very negatively about IULs because I did an audit of a couple hundred IULs across the country, and only 9% of them were designed to make maximum money. 91% of them were designed for maximum commissions, the most expensive, things like that. And so when the Dave Ramseys and different people go on and say, watch out for indexed universal life, it's really, really expensive, it's a crappy insurance product, blah, 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 they're not telling you the whole story. 91% of the time under my research, it was kind of a average or a crappy product. But 9% of those across the country were designed to be able to do exactly what I said, were the lowest legal expenses, the lowest commissions possible. It's an insurance product. So you have life insurance, which is really important. People will die, right? We've been seeing, more people dying recently. So life insurance is important. You have guaranteed security against the stock market. It's called the 0% floor, meaning no matter what happens in the stock market, your account value is contractually guaranteed protected against that risk inside the stock market. It averages around 7% historically. It's been around 20 years. It's gotten right around 7%, which is good. There's nothing, no one gets all super excited about 7%, but it was done consistently and conservatively and protected and things like that. So a lot of people buy into this. I just took it one step further. I go, whoa. Leverage is using someone else's money to accelerate your wealth. Who would not want to do that? If you have access to an unlimited amount of money that can make you a 3% interest spread on average, you're making 7 and it's costing you 4, and you can do this every year. So you just don't do it one time. You do it every single year, year in, year out, and you increase your rate of return up to 15%, all built on side of the securities of life insurance. All of a sudden, you just produced a financial plan that has guaranteed security, aggressive growth, liquidity. There are 2 good things about life insurance is, one, there's no penalty to access it. So you can retire at any age. So my younger clients are like, are you telling me I don't have to work till 59 and a half in my 401k? Yeah. If you want to get aggressive and you want a rock star, go out there and do that. The second really awesome feature also inside these MPI systems is it is built like a Roth IRA where you put money in taxed. So you pay tax going in. All your distributions and inheritance is tax-free after that. So when you have no access penalty, and you have tax-free distributions, and you don't have the $6,000 limit like you do a Roth IRA, you can put in six figures, even seven-figure premiums inside these things. You can put in $1 million into this and still get all the tax advantages of a Roth IRA. It's built for everyone, whether you're making 30 grand a year or $1 million a year. There's no vehicle that I'm aware of, and I've done 6 years of research and wrote a thesis on this, that can provide you the security, the growth, the leverage, the income, the tax advantages, the liquidity, the life insurance, the living benefits, all the different things, all built inside of one holistic financial plan.
Pretty powerful. Where can everybody go on here? And I mean, I could go on for hours, but man, what you said was powerful enough, right, to perfectly set us up to wrap up. Where can everybody go to learn more about this and kind of, get set up with your team to be able to see if this can work for them and how it can work for them?
Yep. So if I have two websites, I'm going to joke about one website real quick. I was sitting in church 2 months ago. 3 months, it would have been, I guess 4 months ago now. And I just finished my book, The Lost Science of Compound Interest. And I'm thinking I need a domain name that I can go on podcast and I can just say, here's where you find my book. Here's where you contact me. Here's my information. And it's got to be easy to remember. When I wrote my first book, Everyone Ends Up Poor, and I tell them, go to everyoneendsuppoor.com. No one remembers that. It's like everyone ends up broke. Everyone ends up dead. I mean, they come up with a million different things. No one ever remembers it. So I'm sitting in church and I'm like, I need a really good domain name. And so I call it Divine Intervention, because in that moment, I just said, I know what my domain's going to be. And you're not going to believe this when I tell you the domain I got in church 4 months ago, and there was no website for it. Compoundinterest.com. The number one most Googled term in all of personal finance, 470,000 unique IP addresses Googling it per month. And no one had ever purchased the domain compoundinterest.com.
That's crazy.
And I'm just like, it's impossible, because there are supercomputers who like check keywords all the time and buy domains, for GoDaddy and stuff like that, nonstop 24/7. And how this one very unique compoundinterest.com website somehow was missed by the world and the supercomputers and everything. And I just bought it on that day sitting in church. I told my wife, I'm like, am I allowed to buy this? It's Sunday and I'm in church. And she's like, buy it now. Buy it now. And I read it like 20 times. I'm like, am I spelling it correctly? Like, I had to have misspelled it. There's no way compoundinterest.com is available. And sure enough. And so if you want to contact me or get access to my book, and I do a live webinar every Wednesday, go to compoundinterest.com and you can get a lot of information and contact us and stuff like that. SunCor Financial is the name of my business. So suncorfinancial.com is my business, and you can schedule one-on-one with me or my team. And then on any social media platform, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, everything, it's either Curtis Ray or I am Curtis Ray. And I'm always putting nonstop content on there, video after video after video, explaining taxes, explaining risk, explaining reward, explaining leverage, and how when you screw all the 2x4s together, you got something pretty awesome.
I love you, man. You're pretty awesome.
Thank you.
I just think it's so cool that you had such a big problem and it hit you so hard. And then you dedicated so much time going out and finding a solution that even, the wisest of financial people really hadn't thought through. Like, to me, that's the epitome of entrepreneurship. So congrats on your success, man. I love what you're doing. I'm going to schedule a consultation with your team. So I think this is really interesting.
Awesome. Well, for you, make sure you say specifically for Curtis Ray. Me and you can talk.
That sounds good, man. I appreciate you coming on the show. Thanks, Curtis.
No problem at all. Anything you need, let me know.
So everybody, check out suncorfinancial.com. That's actually SUN Sun and then Core, COR financial.com. And if you go to suncorfinancial.com, a bunch of cool information. And then compoundinterest.com somehow was available. And so make sure you check out compoundinterest.com. I know, for one, I am going to schedule a consultation with Curtis's team, because as you guys know, I have a lot of financial experts on here, but what he said makes a lot of sense. I know a lot about these individual vehicles he's talking about, and putting them all together the way that he's put together is pretty brilliant. Is really brilliant. So learn more, suncorfinancial.com or compoundinterest.com. A lot of more information if you're interested in investing and getting the biggest rate of return when you retire. Do so. Look, as entrepreneurs, we all make the same mistake. We all plan on exiting our business and getting rich when we do. But the statistics are not good that that's going to happen for the majority of us. So have a safeguard, as Curtis said. I mean, set up your life in a way where you can set this money aside and have a safeguard in case maybe things don't work out like you think they will. And if things do work out like you think they will, well, then that's even better. So make sure you check out more at suncorfinancial.com or compoundinterest.com. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.